What happens when two of anime's sharpest minds are thrown into the most brutal survival game ever conceived? Enter Squid Game, a twisted arena where 456 players, drowning in debt and despair, are pitted against one another in a series of childhood games with deadly stakes. Win, and you walk away with unimaginable wealth. Lose, and you pay the ultimate price. Now imagine two of anime's most iconic geniuses, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka from Classroom of the Elite and Yagami Light from Deathnote, thrust into this unforgiving competition. Light, the calculating mastermind with a god complex. Ayanokoji, the silent manipulator who prefers the shadows, never drawing any unnecessary attention. But Squid Game doesn't care about your intellect or ego. It's chaos, pure, unfiltered chaos. In this video, I'm going to reimagine the famous Squid Game Season 1 with these two masterminds in it. Who will outsmart the other, and who will crumble under the pressure? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Now let the Squid Game begin. The arena is set, a massive warehouse painted in pastel colors, a facade that does nothing to hide the sinister games about to unfold. Among the 456 desperate participants, two figures stand out. One commands attention with his quiet confidence. The other fades seamlessly into the background. Light Yagami, who exudes an aura of quiet authority. His calm, confident demeanor sets him apart from the panicked masses. Light scans the room, his sharp eyes analyzing every detail, cataloging potential threats and opportunities. He doesn't see himself as one of these people. He's already convinced this is just another step in his divine journey. In stark contrast, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka blends seamlessly into the background. His expression is neutral, almost bored, as if the life and death stakes around him are nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Ayanokoji's eyes, however, betray his true nature. They flicker from face to face, silently evaluating the crowd, but he makes no effort to stand out. To the untrained eye, he's just another player, a quiet, unassuming young man lost in the chaos. The frontman's voice booms through the hall, announcing the first game. Red light, green light, a seemingly simple childhood challenge with a deadly twist. Light listens intently, a faint smirk playing on his lips. This is all predictable. The organizers want chaos and fear to weed out the weak. But Light isn't weak. He's already formulating a strategy, one that will ensure not only his survival, but his dominance. Ayanokoji, on the other hand, listens without expression. He doesn't need to make a plan, not yet. Instead, he studies the guards, noting their movements and the subtle power dynamics among them. He knows the most dangerous enemies aren't always the ones holding weapons. As the players are herded into the game arena, panic begins to set in. Murmurs ripple through the crowd, some pleading to leave, others desperately trying to rally support. Light stands apart, his calm demeanor drawing a few nervous participants toward him. "Stick with me," he says, his voice firm but reassuring. "We'll get through this together." His charisma works like a charm, and soon a small group forms around him. Light doesn't need them, but they'll serve as useful shields, both physically and strategically. Ayanokoji, meanwhile, remains at the back of the crowd, observing. He doesn't speak to anyone, doesn't try to form alliances. He doesn't need allies, not in a game like this. Instead, he focuses on the game itself, mentally mapping out the distances, the speed of the robotic doll's movements, and the reactions of the players around him. The game begins. The doll turns its head, announcing, "Green light." The crowd surges forward, some stumbling in their eagerness to gain ground. When the doll spins back with a chilling red light, chaos erupts. A player stumbles and falls, the sound of a weapon shot ringing out as they collapse, lifeless onto the ground. Screams fill the air, and several players freeze in terror, unable to comprehend the reality of their situation. Light moves with purpose, his every step calculated to maintain his balance and composure. His group follows his lead, emboldened by his calm presence. But Light isn't focused on them. He's watching the doll, timing its movements and ensuring he stays ahead of the curve. Ayanokoji, in contrast, moves at an almost leisurely pace. He waits for the panicked players to thin out, stepping forward only when the crowd clears enough for him to move unimpeded. When the doll turns, he freezes with perfect precision, his body as still as a statue. He doesn't react to the shots or the growing pile of bodies. His focus is absolute. Light notices him. At first, Ayanokoji's unassuming appearance doesn't register as a threat, but there's something about his movements, so controlled, so deliberate, that piques Light's curiosity. For a moment, their eyes meet. Light smirks, dismissing him as just another pawn in his grand scheme. Ayanokoji offers no reaction, his gaze blank and unreadable. As the game progresses, the true nature of the participants begins to reveal itself. Some break down entirely, unable to cope with the pressure. Others grow desperate, using the chaos to push others into danger zones. Light capitalizes on this, subtly guiding his group to eliminate potential threats while ensuring his own survival. Ayanokoji, however, doesn't engage with the others. He doesn't need to. He moves with the precision of a machine routine, his every step perfectly timed to avoid detection. While Light plays the crowd, Ayanokoji plays the game. When the timer ticks down to the final seconds, both reach the finish line almost simultaneously. Light crosses with his group, flashing a victorious smile. Ayanokoji crosses moments later, unnoticed by anyone but Light. For the briefest moment, Light's confidence wavers. There's something about the way Ayanokoji carries himself, so detached, so unbothered, that doesn't sit right with him. As the survivors are led back to the main hall, Light's mind races. Who is this quiet, unassuming boy? And why does he feel like the only real challenge in the room? Ayanokoji, meanwhile, doesn't spare Light a second glance. In his mind, Light is just another player, a useful distraction perhaps, but nothing more. But as the games continue, it becomes clear these two are on a collision course, and the real battle hasn't even begun. The aftermath of the first game is chaos. The remaining players huddle in corners of the main hall, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. Some are sobbing, others frantically whispering about what might come next. Alliances are beginning to form, but just as many people are turning on each other, blaming others for their close calls. In one corner of the room, Light sits with his newly formed group, exuding calm authority. He listens to their concerns, nodding thoughtfully, offering reassuring words where necessary. "We can't let fear control us," Light says, his voice firm but compassionate. "This is a game of strategy, not just survival. If we work together, we can ensure we all make it through." His group clings to his every word, desperate for a leader. What they don't realize is that to Light, they're pawns. Every alliance is temporary, every friendship expendable. His goal isn't just to survive, it's to dominate. Across the room, Ayanokoji sits alone, leaning casually against a wall. His face is as unreadable as ever, his posture relaxed. He's watching everything. The alliance is forming, the guards pacing the perimeter, the subtle body language of the other players. He notes how Light has already taken control of his group, how others are gravitating toward him. He's charismatic, Ayanokoji thinks, dangerous but predictable. Light notices Ayanokoji sitting alone and narrows his eyes. It's unusual for someone to be so isolated, especially after the first game. Most players are desperate for allies, clinging to anyone who can offer even the illusion of safety. But not this boy. Light approaches, his expression friendly but curious. "Hey," he says, sitting down a few feet away. "You were impressive out there. Calm under pressure, precise movements. You've got a good head on your shoulders." Ayanokoji glances at him, his face impassive. "Thanks." Light waits for more, but Ayanokoji offers nothing. The silence stretches between them, but Light doesn't let it bother him. Instead, he leans forward slightly, his tone casual but probing. "You know, a game like this isn't just about physical ability," Light says. "It's about understanding people, knowing who to trust, who to avoid. You're good at staying unnoticed, but that won't be enough in the long run. You'll need allies." Ayanokoji tilts his head slightly, as if considering the advice. "Allies can be liabilities," he says simply. Light chuckles, masking his annoyance. "True, but they can also be assets, if you choose wisely." For a moment, their eyes meet again. Light's gaze is calculating, searching for a weakness, a way to draw Ayanokoji into his orbit. Ayanokoji's gaze is blank, giving nothing away. "I'll keep that in mind," Ayanokoji says, his tone neutral. Then he stands and walks away, leaving Light sitting there, his smile fading. Who is he? Light wonders, and why does he feel like a threat? The announcement for the second game cuts through the tense atmosphere. The guards usher the players into another room, this one filled with rows of long tables. On each table sits a tray of small circular tins. The rules are explained. Each player must choose a tin, which contains a honeycomb candy with a shape etched into it. They must carve out the shape without breaking it. Failure means elimination. The players hesitate, unsure of which tin to choose. Some rush forward, grabbing randomly, while others hang back, trying to strategize. Light moves deliberately, selecting a tin with a triangle, a simple shape that he knows will be easier to carve. Ayanokoji, as always, hangs back watching. He notices how Light picks his tin confidently, how others follow his example, hoping his choice will somehow bring them luck. Ayanokoji's eyes drift to the remaining tins. Among them is one with an umbrella shape, the most difficult. Without hesitation, he picks it up. The game begins. The room is filled with the sound of scratching as players carefully carve their shapes. Light works methodically, his steady hands making quick work of the triangle. Around him, others struggle, the tension palpable as cracks begin to form in their candies and their composure. A weapon shot rings out, then another, as players fail. Light doesn't flinch. He finishes his candy, holding it up for the guards to see, then leans back to observe the rest of the room. His eyes land on Ayanokoji, who is calmly working on the umbrella. Ayanokoji's movements are unhurried, precise. He uses the tip of his needle to trace the edges of the umbrella, applying just enough pressure to weaken the candy without breaking it. He doesn't seem bothered by the rising tension or the mounting casualties. As the timer ticks down, Ayanokoji finishes his umbrella with seconds to spare. He holds it up, his expression as neutral as ever. Back in the main hall, the survivors are fewer now, their numbers nearly halved. The atmosphere is heavier, the fear more pronounced. Light sits with his group, but his focus keeps drifting back to Ayanokoji. This time, Light doesn't approach. He watches from a distance, studying every move, every interaction, or lack thereof. Ayanokoji doesn't speak to anyone, doesn't try to form alliances. He doesn't need to. Light smirks to himself. He's smart, but he's making a mistake. A game like this isn't won by staying alone. Eventually, he'll have to make a move, and when he does, I'll be ready. The real game hasn't started yet, but both of them know it's coming, and when it does, it won't be about survival, it'll be about control. The guards enter, their masks expressionless, and order the players to line up. They're led to the next game arena, the sound of their footsteps echoing ominously in the narrow hallway. The next game is announced, Tug of War. The players are split into teams of 10 and led to a high platform where the game will take place. The platform is suspended over a deep pit, and the sight of it sends a wave of dread through the players. The rules are simple. The losing team will fall to their deaths. Light's team and Ayanokoji's team end up in separate groups, but their eyes meet briefly before the game begins. For Light, this is an opportunity. Tug of War isn't just about strength, it's about strategy. If I can ensure my team works as one, we'll win. He takes charge immediately, instructing his team on the best formation. Lean back, dig in your heels, and pull in unison. If we stay coordinated, they won't stand a chance. His team follows his instructions to the letter, their faith in him absolute. As the game begins, their strategy proves effective. The opposing team struggles, their lack of coordination their downfall. Light watches with satisfaction as the other team plummets, their screams echoing in the pit below. On the other side of the platform, Ayanokoji's team is less organized. Most of them are arguing, their nerves fraying under the pressure. Ayanokoji steps forward, his voice calm but firm. If you want to survive, listen carefully. The group falls silent, drawn in by his quiet authority. Tug of War isn't just about pulling harder, Ayanokoji explains. It's about timing and balance. When they pull, we don't resist. We let them waste their strength. When they falter, we pull together. Understand? The team nods hesitantly, their trust in him born out of desperation. When the game begins, Ayanokoji's strategy is flawless. His team conserves their energy, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the opposing team overextends, Ayanokoji gives the signal, and his team pulls with everything they have. The opposing team collapses, their grip failing, and they tumble into the pit. Ayanokoji doesn't celebrate. He simply steps back, his expression as calm as ever. The players are led into a somber arena resembling a deserted village. There, they're informed that they must form pairs for the next game. The mood shifts instantly as allies become opponents. Light and Ayanokoji find themselves matched, each confident they can outwit the other. The game is simple. Each pair is given 10 marbles, and the goal is to take all of the opponent's marbles by the end of the round. The rules don't specify how this must be done, leaving the method of play entirely up to the players. Light, ever the manipulator, starts with a calm smile. Why waste time fighting each other when we can work together to survive, he says, proposing a collaborative approach. Let's just play even odds for the first few rounds and settle things fairly. Ayanokoji nods in apparent agreement, his face unreadable. That sounds reasonable, he replies, but behind his calm demeanor, Ayanokoji is already calculating every possible outcome. He knows Light won't play fair. It's not in his nature. The first few rounds are deliberately uneventful. They agree to play a simple guessing game. One player hides marbles in their hand, and the other guesses whether the number is odd or even. Ayanokoji observes Light closely, noting his subtle tells, how his fingers twitch slightly when hiding an odd number of marbles, or how his smile tightens when he's bluffing. Light, on the other hand, attempts to gauge Ayanokoji's level of trust. He intentionally loses a few marbles early on to lull Ayanokoji into a false sense of security. See, I'm playing fair, he says, feigning innocence. But Ayanokoji is already 2 steps ahead. He intentionally makes minor mistakes, giving Light the illusion that he's gaining the upper hand. As the game progresses, Light becomes more confident, convinced that he's outsmarting his opponent. When only a few marbles remain, Light decides it's time to strike. He proposes a final game. A winner takes all bet. Let's make this interesting, he says, his eyes gleaming with ambition. 1 round, all the marbles. You trust me, don't you? Ayanokoji nods slowly, seemingly hesitating. Fine, he says, placing his last marbles on the line. Light grins, confident he's about to secure victory. He hides a number of marbles in his hand and challenges Ayanokoji to guess. Ayanokoji takes his time, studying Light's expression with surgical precision. Then with a faint smile, he makes his guess. Odd, he says simply. Light's smirk falters as he opens his hand, revealing an odd number of marbles. He loses everything. Stunned, Light demands an explanation. How did you know? He asks, his voice a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Ayanokoji doesn't bother explaining how he read Light's subtle cues or how he manipulated Light into making predictable moves. Instead, he simply replies, "You were too confident." Light glares at Ayanokoji, his mind racing to salvage the situation, but the guards are already approaching. By the end of the round, Ayanokoji Ayanokoji walks away with all 20 marbles, his calm facade unshaken. This game doesn't just test their ability to strategize, it's a psychological war, a battle of wits that leaves Ayanokoji one step closer to the end. Tension in the air is palpable as the remaining players step into the glass stepping stones game, staring down the narrow bridge that extends across a seemingly endless chasm. Below, only darkness awaits those who make a wrong move. The bridge itself is made up of glass panels, some solid, some fragile, but none of them are clearly marked. One misstep and the fall will be fatal. Ayanokoji steps forward, unfazed by the daunting challenge before him. His eyes are sharp, scanning the glass panels with a calculating gaze, as if he already knows the path. There's no hesitation in his movement, no nervous glance toward the others. His every step is deliberate and measured, each decision driven by an impeccable understanding of the game's design. A few players, too terrified to trust the solid-seeming panels, choose to follow him. But as they move closer to Ayanokoji's path, one player steps too heavily on a tile, and a loud crack echoes across the arena. The glass shatters beneath them, and they plummet into the abyss. The others freeze, their faces pale with fear. There is no time to mourn the fallen, and the realization hits them. Any misstep could be their last. Some players hesitate, second-guessing every move, while others start pushing forward more recklessly. Desperation leads to accidents. Ayanokoji, however, remains eerily calm. He makes his way forward with unshakable confidence, the glass clicking softly underfoot as he advances, almost as if the whole game is a well-calculated puzzle to him. The rest of the players struggle to keep up. Some are paralyzed by fear, unable to move, while others are lashing out, creating chaos in their desperation to survive. Ayanokoji passes the halfway point, his eyes scanning the remaining tiles. It's clear to him that the game's complexity lies in the players themselves, not just the glass. The real challenge isn't the stepping stones, it's the paranoia, the tension, and the way desperation clouds the judgment of those around him. Just as he reaches the final stretch of the glass bridge, the tension in the air becomes unbearable. The others are down to the last few contestants, some of them barely making it. Each player that remains knows that there's no turning back. Only one will make it across alive. Ayanokoji takes a deep breath and steps onto the last panel. For a split second, there's a feeling of weightlessness, as if the ground beneath him might crumble. The tension is so thick that it feels as if time itself has slowed. But then, with a soft click, the glass panel holds. Ayanokoji stands at the threshold of a new challenge, his heart calm but his mind racing. What comes next is the final Squid Game, a deadly trial where only one player will emerge victorious. A high-tech arena looms in the distance, designed to look like a traditional Squid Game, the symbol of a playground, a nostalgic but twisted echo of innocence. The setting is like a children's play area, with colors that contrast against the deadly stakes. The atmosphere is heavy with tension, and the masked guards are now everywhere, silently watching over the players. As Ayanokoji steps forward, he surveys the environment. The game has evolved from a test of luck and strength to one of pure strategy and manipulation. This is no longer about jumping on fragile glass tiles or surviving deadly obstacles. This is the final Squid Game, where the winner will be determined by not just physical ability, but by their capacity to outwit everyone else. The final game is revealed to be a twisted version of the children's game called Squid Game, a brutal, no-holds-barred battle in a sandbox of chaos. Or that's how it should have been. The frontman enters the room. He explains to the contestants that the final game is unnecessary. Ayanokoji has proven himself to be superior than all the other contestants. So now he gets to choose. Either the other contestants leave and split the prize among themselves, but he loses his freedom and becomes a part of the Squid Game, or choose to betray them, keeping all the money and leaving the island freely with no catches, other than the fact that all the other contestants shall be eliminated at that moment. Ayanokoji freezes, his eyes narrowing as he processes the weight of the decision. This is not just a tactical choice, it's a moral one. He has no love for the others in the game. They are all pawns to him, but the true test lies in what he's willing to do to win. Betrayal would guarantee his survival, but it would condemn everyone else. Choosing to protect others would mean he risks his own life for something greater. The other players are looking at him now, their eyes filled with uncertainty and fear. They understand that Ayanokoji is a mastermind, but they are not sure which path he will choose. Ayanokoji stands silently, calculating every possible outcome. He's already won the game of wits, manipulating his way through every challenge so far, but now the stakes are higher than ever before. I choose to betray. The arena is silent after the final decision, the tension so thick it feels suffocating. Ayanokoji's confident stance and carefully calculated movements throughout the Squid Game have made him seem invincible, until now. He stands alone in the center of the arena, awaiting the final confirmation that his betrayal has earned him the victory. But as the seconds tick by, something feels off. Ayanokoji's sharp gaze flicks around, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. The Game Master's voice had already echoed through the arena, declaring the end of the Squid Game. Yet there is an uneasiness that that hangs in the air. Suddenly, a voice deep and unsettling cuts through the silence. You really thought you had it all figured out, didn't you, Ayanokoji? Ayanokoji's eyes narrow, the realization hitting him like a bolt of lightning. Light Yagami, he's still alive. The arena is still, the players all standing motionless. No one moves, no one speaks. There's a cold, calculated pause before the final, shocking twist. Light's voice comes again, this time with a cruel smirk in its tone. I've been watching you, Kiyotaka. You've outplayed everyone, outwitted everyone. But you didn't expect this, did you? You didn't expect me to return from the dead. Ayanokoji's heart skips a beat. Light had been eliminated in the earlier round. He had witnessed it himself. There was no way. There couldn't be a way Light could still be alive. But the more Ayanokoji listens, the clearer it becomes. Light had never really died. He had a Shinigami following him around, confirming his remaining lifespan whenever he felt hesitant. Light's voice grows louder, clearer, as if he's speaking from the shadows. You see, Ayanokoji, I knew you'd figure out the games. I knew you'd become the biggest threat. That's why, after I was eliminated, I took matters into my own hands. Literally, Light Yagami had used the Deathnote. He had written Ayanokoji's name in the notebook after all, ensuring his own victory, just as he had always intended. The Game Master's voice speaks again, but this time, it's not the authoritative, commanding tone from before. It's filled with an air of finality. Ayanokoji Kiyotaka, you were an exceptional player, but in the end, even the smartest can fall victim to the true mastermind. It was never about survival. It was about who could control the game's outcome. And Light Yagami controlled everything from the start. Ayanokoji feels a cold wave of dread wash over him. He looks down at his own body. A slight dizziness creeps in, his limbs growing heavy, as if the very essence of life is being stripped from him. The rules of the Squid Game, the ones that had bound him to this arena, no longer matter. The Deathnote, now activated, has sealed Ayanokoji's fate. The invincible strategist, the one who had outwitted every challenge, now faces the unthinkable. He's been erased. Ayanokoji's body goes still. The arena watches in eerie silence as the mastermind of the Squid Game, Light Yagami, stands victorious once again. His voice rings out, triumphant and cold.